You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Hey, I saw Dune. Normally I do 20 minutes of intro, right? I saw Dune. Dune was the only movie from last year that was delayed that I really cared about. I'm mildly interested in James Bond, not enough to go out to the theater. I really want to see Ghostbusters, but the big one last year, the one that hurt the most for all of the delays was Dune. Because I'm a big sci-fi nerd, always have been, ever since I was old enough to read. I have loved reading science fiction. I was there opening night for the original Dune in 1984. The one where they gave you a glossary on the way in through the theater. I actually have one of those. I found some at the swap meet. Those are really hard to find because they were printed on newsprint and meant to be thrown away when you left the theater. So the fact that any of them survived is a big deal. But I watched Dune. I did not go to the theater. The thought of just spending all that money to go to the movies now just seems over excessive. Is that the word? Like, I'd love to see Dune in IMAX. I'm sure it's awe-inspiring in IMAX, but you're talking, to get to the theater, to watch it in IMAX, $30 if you want to have a drink or a snack while you're watching it. And for $14.99, I can just watch it at home. I can pause it. I can get up and go to the bathroom because, there's all kinds of distractions. The movie's nearly 3 hours long, so you're going to have to go to the bathroom at some point. You have to go to that website, runp.com, that tells you when you can go to the bathroom during a particular movie. But I remember seeing Dune opening night back in 84, and it was okay. It wasn't, they kept saying everything was the next Star Wars. Every movie's the next Star Wars. It's as good as Star Wars. It's as big as Star Wars. With Dune, they actually had good reason to say that because a lot of what Lucas did, he borrowed from movies like Dune, or books like Dune, I'm sorry. A World Made of Sand, an order of religious zealots who, using their religion, can force people to do things. Like, it's all there. They don't have lightsabers, but they do have personal force shields that they wear, which is why there's not a lot of guns in the movie, because you can't shoot anybody. If you want to kill somebody in Dune, you have to get right up on them and move your blade through their shield and kill them. They're going to know you did it. You're going to have to mean to do it. You can't be an anonymous killer. I watched Dune at home. It wasn't the optimal thing. I was able to have subtitles on, which is good because a lot of the movie is complete gibberish. They start talking about the Bene Gesserit and Muad'Dib and all these other wacky words. You want to have a frame of reference to even know what the hell they're talking about. And the subtitles do help. It's not worth going into the plot of Dune because you've seen it a million times. I'll go over the plot in so much as I need to critique the film, but it's silly to give a full rundown of this movie. It's already been done. It's a remake. The biggest problem with Dune, the reason I'm not jumping up and down, is because it's not a full story. It's yet another Hollywood piece of entertainment, in quotes, where they don't tell a whole story. The whole thing with a movie, the reason movies have resonated so much with us over the last 100 years is that generally you can go into the movies, you can meet some people, some characters, you can spend some time with them, and then you get a gist of the story, and then the story ends. And if it's good, if people like it, if it clicks, maybe they can tell another story. But this idea that they're not going to tell full stories anymore, that they're just going to chop stories up into multiple viewing experiences, and they just announced the second part of Dune for the end of 2023. So, hey, great, guys. 2 years from now, I can revisit the world of Arrakis and pick up where we left off. It seems so, I don't know what the word is. It seems like the easy way out for filmmakers. If you're going to do this, do what Peter Jackson did and make them all at the same time so that you can release them a year apart and not 2 years apart. And are they going to get everybody back? Sometimes you can't get people back. Sometimes people die, like in The Matrix, the Oracle died because they didn't know they were making sequels. Now, I can forgive that because, again, The Matrix, the first movie, tells a complete story. They had no idea they were going to be suckered into doing 3 and now 4 of those movies. But Dune, that you're not going to tell the story. Like, it literally just stops. The movie has sort of a finale. I mean, not really. And then it just freaking stops. They're like, the first part of our journey ends here. Oh, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, because unless, you're like a nerd like me and you've seen the other movie or read the books, then you might know what's coming, but so much of this version of Dune is just not there by virtue of being only one film. The villains are hardly in the movie. They're just sort of a outside force. The Emperor, they talk about the Emperor over and over again, and they don't show him. Like in Star Wars, the Emperor is mentioned once. In Empire, he's mentioned again at the end. They do that scene where Vader meditates, and then we finally meet the Emperor. But this one, they talk about him endlessly. The Emperor is removing the Harkonnens from Arrakis and giving Arrakis to the Atreides. And you're like, oh, well, they should show this guy in his throne room, like, cackling, because the whole story is set in motion so that these two families will wipe each other out. The Emperor doesn't want House Harkonnen or House Atreides to exist, or certainly doesn't want House Atreides to exist anymore, because the whole reason Arrakis is given to them to mine is so that the Harkonnens will strike back and destroy them. Seems like a long way to go for a political assassination when, if you watch the movie, you could just send a little dart. Like, if you want House Atreides gone, you could do a full corporate takeover of this mining operation, or which involves putting people off-world and sabotaging equipment, desperately needed equipment. I think that's the thing you have to understand is, in the context of the story of Dune, they have to have the spice. They can't not have it. It's such a thinly veiled allegory for oil in the Middle East. I mean, even down to the sand. It's oil in the Middle East. You can fight over it all you want. But in the end, somebody has to go out there and mine it, because the whole world, i.e. the whole galaxy, is depending upon what you mine out in the desert, or they can't get around. The spice is slightly hallucinogenic. They talk about that, and then when Paul finally breathes some in, he starts to have more visions, right? But the main thrust of why they mine spice is because they use it to get around the galaxy. It's the only way to navigate through cross-dimensional space travel. So they have to mine it. So when the Emperor removes the Harkonnen, and I keep saying Harkonnen, when I'm pretty sure it's Harkonnen. As far as I know, it's always been Baron Harkonnen, and Harkonnen as the bad guy. I find it odd that they say Harkonnen. Maybe that's the correct pronunciation, but Harkonnen with the hard and strict vowels sounds better than Harkonnen. Harkonnen sounds like a car running out of gas. Oh, Harkonnen. But Harkonnen, Baron Harkonnen and the Harkonnen house sounds so much better. It's a small quibble, I know. But if everybody needs the spice, and they need it, then why would they risk disrupting the pipeline if the only goal is to kill House Atreides? Just kill House Atreides. Just burn them up. I don't know. It seems without the Emperor mapping out his evil plan, the whole thing comes across as a lot of work for something that could have been done so easily. They can send a little tiny dart to kill people. So why not just send some little tiny darts all around the planet and kill all the Atreides? Then the spice production is never disrupted. Because when the Atreides get to Arrakis, they're told, it's going to take weeks to get this online, and the Emperor wants the spice flowing right away. And I guess, for this kind of story, like that's the story. That's the story they're telling. That's the story Frank Herbert told. I get it. But maybe add a little bit of motivation for why the Emperor would go to these crazy lengths to kill this guy, just to eliminate this house. The other thing about the movie, and I have a few quibbles, and it's weird because I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed sitting for 3 hours and watching the movie, even though I hated Prometheus. But I enjoy watching expensive science fiction with big, clunky vehicles and streamlined spacesuits and vistas and production design. I love all that. Usually the stories just aren't up to snuff. They're just so few of them are good. And Dune was okay. I'm not trashing the movie. I thought it was pretty good. My only main issue is that it doesn't tell a whole story. And for 3 hours, boy, man, you could just get to some of this stuff. And it's not that I have a short attention span. Not by any stretch. I've been watching 3-hour movies since I started going to the movies. I have no issue with movie length. But a lot of the scenes in Dune just go on, and we already know the gist. Just get to it. And the visions are so overdone. Oh my God. Just get to it. The other issue is we never really get to know these characters. We're so caught up in this big science fiction storyline, with big spaceships and big ideas, that nothing ever slows down long enough to just give us who these people are. I know that Paul Atreides is a wimpy little guy who does not think he's ever going to assume his father's throne. That's it. That's all I know. And that he dreams of a girl on a desert planet. That's it. We'll go back to Luke Skywalker. We know that Luke Skywalker is a pilot. He likes to tinker with robots. He's a farmer. He dreams of getting away. He's stuck with the legacy of his father that he's not quite sure of. There's a lot in a really short amount of time when we get to know Luke Skywalker. Marty McFly, we get to know Marty very quickly. He's late. He's kind of a smart aleck. He likes rock and roll. He hangs out with this old guy. And then, boom, the story begins. Paul Atreides, couldn't tell you. He has no pop culture in his room. Remember, in science fiction movies, the characters never enjoy any kind of entertainment, really. They just live their lives for these grand ideas and experiments and travel. That's it. There is an exception, and a really good exception, and that's The Fifth Element, because Corbin Dallas lives in an apartment full of pop culture. You really get to know Corbin Dallas just by looking around his apartment. Can't say the same for Paul Atreides. I don't know anything about Paul Atreides. He's a moody little guy who has to assume a great mantle at some point, because when they're walking among the tombstones, it's like, we get it. He has to live up to his relatives. We get it. He's never going to live up to his relatives. He has a destiny that he'll never live up to. Well, we know that's not the case. Otherwise, we wouldn't be telling this story. Right? We wouldn't be telling it. But I get it. That's the hero's journey. I just wish there was a few more minutes of getting to know Paul Atreides. Like, show him hanging out with some friends. We never meet any other inhabitants of the Atreides homeworld. We see soldiers, we see bureaucrats, we see his mother and his father. We don't see anybody else. We see, again, more soldiers. But if they had shown him hanging out with friends, maybe doing something recreational, we might get to know and like this guy before we're forced to watch him shoulder the burden of the entire spice pipeline and freeing the Fremen people, whatever. We meet his mother and his father. They're just sort of stock characters. His mother is his mom and Ben Kenobi all rolled into one. She was told by her secret order to only have daughters so that there would be more of the secret order because they're all women. She had a son. She defied them because she thinks she's going to bear the Messiah. That's all buried in the dialogue. But even she doesn't believe it, because when she sends Paul to meet the Bene Gesserit priestess, she has to stand outside, and she's terrified because she knows when Paul puts his hand in the box, he's probably going to pull his hand out and get killed. She doesn't believe he's the Messiah. But why did she have a son if she didn't believe it? You see, the characters are at odds with their actions. She tells the priestess that she had a son to make the Messiah. But when the Messiah is finally given his first test, she doesn't believe he'll pass. She looks shocked when she comes back in and Paul is alive. Which means even she doesn't have faith in Paul. So how can Paul have faith in himself? When Kyle MacLachlan puts his hand in the box in the original film, we see his flesh being burnt off. In the new film, it's just acting, and I'm okay with that. But it is odd not to show anything that's actually going on in the box. Because Timothy Chalamet, the guy who plays the new Paul, he's not much of a strong actor in those sequences. He's a solid performer across the board in the film. But in moments like the pain of the box, I didn't really buy it. It might have helped his performance to show a little bit of what was going on inside the box. We get to meet Duncan Idaho, the best star pilot in the galaxy, played by Jason Momoa. There's been a lot of internet nonsense making fun of the character's name, Duncan Idaho. Hey, if you're on the internet and you're making fun of a character's name that's been in a book for over 50 years, you're an idiot. You're showing your ignorance. Duncan Idaho is a fine name. Maybe they named their people to honor the original homeworld. I don't know. I don't remember. But it seems like such a silly thing to latch onto. Like, oh, his name is Duncan Idaho. Let's make some jokes. Like, okay. Would you make fun of Boo Radley? Would you make fun of Goody Proctor? This is the author's intent. And these books are classics. But I guess we're just in an age where nobody has any reverence for anything anymore. Everything is made to be displayed, ridiculed, chopped up, overanalyzed. And yeah, I get the irony of saying that on a podcast, analyzing the film. But analyzing the film is one thing. The choices a filmmaker makes, when he changes the material or alters the material in a new way. But basic stuff like character names, that's just ignorance. That's why I'm not on Twitter. It seems like a dumpster fire of people who, at the party, talk the loudest. And yeah, I've been accused of that in the past. So I'm self-aware to some degree. And I try to make time to just listen and not be the loudest voice at the party. I always tell people, me knowing everything about movies is just a stupid party trick and it doesn't get you girls. But I am what I am. But I also know where the line is, and the making fun of the Duncan Idaho line is just stupid. It's just dumb. It's like making fun of Aquaman. Well, they made $1 billion movie out of it, so maybe you don't know so much. Maybe you should stop and read something. And I don't get it. I just don't get it. Okay, I gotta move on. I'm off my soapbox. I clicked an article that I shouldn't have, and it was just, people are roasting Jason Momoa on the internet because of this. And I'm like, well, why? Oh, the character name. That's it? Because his performance is fine in the movie. And in the 1984 movie, that's Patrick Stewart. So if you're making fun of Patrick Stewart, we're going to have to tangle here. Even if I didn't like Picard. But the movie Dune is quite sterile. There's no pop culture. The only decoration we see again and again is a bull head, because a bull was who killed their big great relative. So they cart this bull head all over the universe as a reminder that death is always watching. Like the bullhead is the specter. They show it on the wall. They show it being packed. They show it on the new wall. And what does it mean? It means that you brought death across the galaxy with you because you can't let go of the past. And until Paul lets go of the past and embraces his new life as a Fremen and the Messiah, then the story can't continue. It's weird to use the bull. The bull is the metaphor for that. But here it is. In the original film, The turncoat doctor is played by Brad Dourif. In this film, I'm not sure who the guy is. He's not a well-known actor. He does a serviceable job. The problem is that we don't see him conspiring with the Harkonnens, prior to him becoming evil. All of a sudden, he's just decided to kill everybody. The Harkonnens cannot penetrate the shield and kill everybody and take over unless the Doctor allows them. So the Doctor becoming a turncoat is out of left field. They never even mention that his wife is in some sort of trouble, which is the whole catalyst for him turning. It's a weird choice to leave it completely in the dark until he's done it, and then suddenly when he's done, he's like, well, I did it for my wife. And you're like, well, we know that you're never going to be reunited with your wife. And his thanks for doing all of it is that he just gets killed. The Baron just kills him. It's all for naught. And he puts a poisoned tooth in Leto's mouth so that he can kill the Baron. Like, everybody's killing everybody, and ultimately, if everybody dies, there's no story. So it is kind of odd, like these, and I get, like, again, that's the machinations of the story. I totally get it. But sometimes you have to clue the audience in. If we had known the Doctor was a turncoat prior to him becoming a traitor, for him doing it, there might have been a lot of tension, like, this guy's evil. They better figure this out. They better find out he's the bad guy before something... Oh, it went down. Oh, the shield's down. Oh, the Duke has been killed. Oh, the Duke's dead. And he took his ring. I did enjoy there's a character that's like she's a woman. She's like the crossover. She worked for the Harkonnens, and now she's going to instruct the Atreides, and she works with the Fremen, like she's all over the place. It's a great character. I think it was Max von Sydow in the original version. She's the one that sort of helps Paul and his mother get out of the city, which, look, there's great moments. Like, even Phantom Menace has the pod race, right? And I'm not saying this is Phantom Menace level bad. It's at least 70% a great movie. But boy, that ending is a slap in the face to any moviegoer. Because when they made it, they didn't even greenlight the second one. They only greenlit the second one this last couple of days because they're hoping that it will boost box office attendance, because who's going to go into a movie knowing that it's a multi-parter and that they haven't either A, made the other part, or B, even started making the other part? And guess what? They haven't even started making the other part. They're going to get to it. That's a huge machine to start up again. A huge machine. Considering that it's not like The Empire Strikes Back, where it's a whole new story. There's familiarity, but a whole new story. To start up Dune 2 again, Dune Book 2, or whatever they're going to call it, it's the same desert, it's the same rocks, it's the same costumes, it's the same actors. So I hope everybody signed on, and I'm sure they did. Because if somebody didn't sign on, they have a huge bargaining chip, and they're probably going to be written out. Think about Madam Hooch, who teaches Quidditch in the first Harry Potter. They only signed her for that first one, so when she asked for more money in the second one, guess what? There's no more Madam Hooch. Madam Hooch be let go by Hogwarts. I'm punch drunk. I'm totally punch drunk. Talking about Dune. Man, did I want to collect the Dune action figures. Back in the day, I only had one. I had Sting, because I thought it was funny you could buy an action figure of a rock star. They were expensive figures. LJN made them. I think they were about $7.99 when they came out. Back when most action figures were about $3. So they were double the price, double the size. It was the main difference. It's like the difference between the Raiders of the Lost Ark figures and the Temple of Doom figures, again by LJN. Why they didn't go with the 3 3/4, I don't know. They went with more the Thundercat size. They're bigger. But I've tried buying them recently, and of course with the new movie out, interest has gone way up. The Sandworm is one of a few vintage toys I've never owned. I gotta get some of these figures. I'd love to have a shelf of the LJN Dune line, but it is quite expensive. I have one item. I have the Fremen gun. I got it at an antique store. It just said Ray Gun on it. It was $9. And that's about a $75 or $80 item. I was really shocked at the person who sold it did not know what it was. I knew what it was because I'm a dork. The other main talking point about Dune, and this is just a personal issue with me, is can we get more actors? Can we get more people to be in these movies? Because we get caught in these loops. And the loops are the same people in these big movies over and over and over again. And it's no slight to their talent. Because if they weren't talented, they wouldn't get all this work, except maybe Taylor Lautner and people like that. There have been moments where people have just failed up because they're in a fluke box office movie. I mean, Taylor Lautner rode Twilight for all it was worth, and then when he had his own career, couldn't make it happen. Robert Pattinson didn't have that problem. He's genuinely talented. And the people in Dune are genuinely talented, but oh my God, Oscar Isaac, Poe Dameron from Star Wars, Dave Bautista, he's in Guardians of the Galaxy as the Drax. We have Jason Momoa, he's Aquaman. Josh Brolin, he's Thanos. Timothy Chalamet is now in like every movie coming out, including playing Willy Wonka. And then Zendaya, boy, did they show Zendaya in everything. She walked every red carpet. Every time this movie shone, she walked the red carpet. They covered every outfit she wore, every buckle, every zipper, everything. And you know what? She's in the movie 8 minutes. I couldn't effing believe it. Can you imagine? Like, it wasn't even a cameo. Imagine if you went to go see Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. This is an old pull. And you were told, like, in all the commercials, they showed Sean Connery. Sean Connery, Sean Connery, Sean Connery. And then when you went and saw it, Sean Connery only shows up for the last 8 minutes of the movie. That's Dune and Zendaya. Are you joking? She should not have been in any of the materials of this movie. She is barely in the movie. There were soldier characters who had more dialogue than her and were in more scenes than her, and they were never mentioned in any promotional material. But Zendaya was everywhere for this movie. But man, she's from the Spider-Man series. Like, it's just a who's who of people from other giant movies all coming together to make this giant movie. As if all the movies were some sort of Voltron cinema experience where they all split off to make giant movies and then they come together to make giant movies. And I'm not slighting anybody any work. If somebody offered me 5 blockbuster roles in a row, I'd take them too. But it does get old seeing the same 10 faces in movies over and over again. Oh my God, I get it. You found somebody that people like. So why not put him in every freaking movie? Remember when Jude Law was in every third movie that came out for a few years? Talk about being overexposed. He had to go away for a while. And he didn't resurface until Captain Marvel. I mean, he was gone for a couple of years. But that guy was in every single movie coming out. It's time to get some new actors, man. Just a couple of new people. Just feed them in. I mean, even Stellan Skarsgård, who was in all the Pirates movies, and he's in the MCU. He's the Thor scientist guy. He's Baron Harkonnen. Like, everybody's in these movies. I'm shocked. They didn't call me. I think that's why in these big budget movies, when some older actor shows up in a cameo, we all get really excited. Like, oh, there's so-and-so back on the big screen. Like, remember when Harrison Ford cameoed in his own Blade Runner sequel by the same director? Like, hey, 2 hours in, that's Harrison Ford. He's in the movie. Good for him. I'm sure he'll be cameoing in Indiana Jones as well. Like an hour in, they're like, oh my God, it's Indiana Jones. I remember him. What movie is this? Oh, it's Indiana Jones. And again, no slight. I mean, Harrison Ford's almost 80 or is 80. Like, oh my God. When you were growing up, did it ever occur to you that the people that you genuinely loved going to the movies to see would eventually stop making movies? It never occurred to me. And it certainly never occurred to me that those people I would be saying, could you stop making movies? Because some of them won't. I mean, how many movies is Schwarzenegger going to make about the Terminator before somebody finally says, you need to stop? This is an intervention. Stop making Terminator movies. Eventually, they're all going to be like just animated because they can go to his house and just record him walking around his house. Oh my God. Yeah, Dune. I went and saw Dune. I didn't go to see Dune. I sat on the couch and watched Dune. That's the new way, right? You don't have to go to the theater anymore. You can just stay at home. I will say that HBO Max or whatever it is works so much better than Disney Plus. I mean, Disney Plus is the worst streaming service I've ever used. The movies it takes forever to load. It takes forever for the movie to load. God help you if you pause the movie because good luck getting it to restart. Sometimes it does this ramping thing. You ever watch Survivor when the camera just goes like it goes slow and then fast and then slow? They stole it from 300. That was the first big movie to use that. Zack Snyder, like ramping it's called. Well, every movie ramps on Disney Plus, even if the director didn't intend it, because it just fast forwards for no reason and then stops all of a sudden. Disney Plus sucks. It's the worst streaming service out there. Oh my God. But I bought HBO Max to watch Dune. I'm going to watch a couple other movies. I'm probably not going to keep it. I'm not home enough to own these streaming services and to pay for them. I just buy movies on disc and watch them whenever I want, you know. I think that's the phrase I've said the most this year, is that I'll see a movie like Ghostbusters comes out November 19th. And every time I see a trailer, I go, I should already have that movie on disc. That movie should have come out last year, and I should already own it. And it hadn't even freaking come out yet. But hey, kudos to the studios for not letting these movies leak on the internet. Because I'm shocked that these delayed movies didn't show up somewhere on the internet early. Because if there's a digital copy on a server somewhere, somebody's going to get it. Somebody's going to run off with it. But they've been pretty good. Hey, good for them. You know, I'm not one to pirate movies. I have no problem paying for movies because Lord knows I own enough of them. But it just seems odd, like in a world where everything is disposable, everything is stolen, everything is ripped off, they managed to keep those movies off the internet. They've also managed to keep Back to the Future, the musical, off the internet, which is really something, because most Broadway shows show up on the internet, no problem. Josie has shown there's secret keywords, you can find them on YouTube, but Back to the Future hasn't been on the internet because it's in London. It's not like I'm not paying for it. I'm really not paying for it because I can't fly to London to watch it. You know, it's going to go to Broadway next in New York and then here, and I'll be able to see it, I don't know, when I'm 80, when I'm as old as Indiana Jones. Hey, I turned 50. That's weird. You never think you're going to turn anything like that. I remember turning 40 and thinking, well, this isn't a big deal. They make movies about turning 40, but I didn't really see the big deal. 50 is like, oh, I almost cursed. Screw it. 50 is like, oh shit, I'm 50. I'm officially old. When I was a young person, if somebody told me they were 50, I'd go, man, how are you still alive? But it's just a number. Who cares? I really don't care. Age to me is like height. It matters to some people, like really matters to some people. Doesn't matter to me. The whole world has had a problem with my height, and I'm a short person. I've never cared. And now that I'm 50, I don't care about being 50. The other day at work, somebody goes, Jeff, you're 59. And I went, oh yeah, I totally am. Sure. What now? But it doesn't factor in any decisions I make. We're all just living our lives. We're all just doing the best we can, right? The hardest part about turning 50 is not me turning 50. It's the fact that because I've turned 50, vis-a-vis, my children have gone up in age as well. And the stages you go through in life are interesting, and you don't know them till you are in them. There's no book you can read, no movie you can watch that even if they tell you straight out, you will get it till you arrive there on your own doing. And it's interesting that you start out as a kid, everything's about playing around, As a teenager, you're trying to find your place. You're trying to shed the childish trappings, and God damn it, I'm an adult. And then you're a young adult, and you're like, I'm a young adult now. I'm not a teenager anymore. And then you have kids. And all the life that you led up to having kids now changes, because now you have somebody that depends on you, and you have to take care of them. And you grow the hell up when you have children. The death of my mother, Berg, none of that mattered in a way that having a child did, the way it changed me. So then you live this existence for your kids. There isn't anything you wouldn't do for them. No road you wouldn't travel. What does Robin Williams say in Mrs. Doubtfire? I plead insanity because I'm crazy about my kids. And every moment is spent taking care of them, making sure they have the things that they need, making sure you're with them, wanting to be with them, and they wanting to be with you. And then somehow that changes and morphs, and you don't realize it until late. And then when you do realize it, you understand that, well, I went through this too. When I was a teenager, I didn't want to be home. With Berg there, I certainly didn't want to be there. So I was always gone. And now that my kids are always gone, either working or doing a play at school, they don't need me the way they used to. And that's taken some getting used to. That the person who depended on you the most suddenly does not depend on you. And you ask yourself, well, what am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do with all this giving that I've stored up? So you start to rediscover, if you're still married, your marriage. You know, Rachel and I are discovering we do a lot more together now than we haven't done things together like this since we were in our 20s. Since before kids. But there's always that weird, where are the kids? Oh, they don't need us as much anymore. Luna lives in Seattle. Austin lives at work. Josie lives at school. Like, I'm sitting home alone doing this episode. I haven't been home alone since Kevin was home alone. So what, 1990? I don't know what it's like to be home alone. So turning 50, although the calendar says I'm 50, doesn't register to me. What registers to me is that because I'm 50, my youngest is 16. My youngest is close to leaving the nest. Austin's going to leave soon. Josie not far behind him. And then what? You feel like Forrest Gump playing ping pong when they come in and they go, the army says you're okay to go home. And he just looks around and he doesn't know what to do. He runs home. I'll be left with that moment of, your services are no longer required as a parent 100%. You'll always be a parent, but not 100%. And that's the most profound thing I've gotten out of turning 50, is that discovery of not being needed. And if you argued into being a parent and struggled with being a parent, eventually the bike rights itself and you pedal. And just when you get your groove going, they don't want you to ride the bike anymore. Or you arrive where you were going. You're like, oh, well, I just got the hang of this. And now we're here. And where is here? I don't know. Some profound questions. It was more fun talking about Dune, wasn't it? I'm Jeff Tucker, and this is 91 Reasons.